I worked in market research for about 17 years. I worked in Dublin, I worked in London, I worked in Perth, I worked in Sydney. So I have quite a kind of a, no worries, it's just the introduction at this stage. So kind of a diverse range of experience, I suppose. And due to the experiences I had at work, I thought there's definitely an opportunity to create better workplaces for a lot of people. And I left my job about 2 years ago, my most recent job, and I set up my business. And I did a coaching diploma, and I'm currently doing a master's in organisational behaviour, which I'm going to finish in July. So that's a little bit about my background. So I'm very kind of into how people interact with each other, productivity, and analytics as well, because that's where I suppose my focus was a lot in the roles that I had. In terms of today, if you want to follow me or if you want to tweet as I go along, feel free to take pictures and post them onto social media. That's where you'll find me. So I am empowerment_IE on Twitter, and then the Biz Expo is bizexpo_IE. And the hashtag I use is happier at work. And then Biz Expo is BizExpo 2020. So if you want to tweet about what's happening today, then absolutely go ahead and feel free to do that. Feel free to take pictures, videos, whatever, and post them on social media. So what I'm covering today, I'm going to take a look at fish initially. So that's an area that I'm really, really passionate about, is how people fit in the workplace. So I'm going to start there, and I'm going to focus then very much on one part of FIT, which is needs analysis. I'm going to, I suppose, pose a question to you guys, like, why do people actually stay? Like, how do you retain? And then we'll get into a discussion about that. I'm going to talk about universal needs, and then there'll be a time at the end to take questions. So I can take questions at the end, any questions that you have about what I've presented on. And then I also have connection. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I have all of the, what's the word, the barcode and stuff to connect, so we'll go through that at the end as well. How does that sound? Great, let's get started. So I wanted to start by talking about FIT. FIT has 3 dimensions, if you like. So there's the demands, abilities, and that's the area that a lot of people focus on. So if you think about job specs, if you think about job descriptions, anything like that, it's all about what are the demands of the job and how does the individual meet those demands of the job. So what skills do they have in order to be able to meet the job? So that's one, and that's the area that a lot of people focus on. The second area I want to talk about is values congruence, or how your values align with the values of the organisation. And so values congruence is really, really important, and it's often overlooked. So it's understanding what the values are of the organisation and what the values are of the individual and how they align with each other. The area that I'm going to focus on today is needs supplies. So needs supplies supports values congruence. So if you can satisfy the needs of your employees, then they will feel like they belong a little bit more within the organisation, and they'll feel like their values align with the organisation. So I want to pose you a question. Why do people stay? So if you think about the last job that you had or the current job that you're in now, why are you staying in that job? Does anyone want to volunteer to answer that question?
You think you're making a difference, maybe, like you have a passion for, the job you're doing,
yeah.
The value that you're bringing to it.
So it's the value that you bring, the impact that you have through whatever you're doing. Anyone else want to say why they stayed or why they left a job? You're appreciated, so you feel valued by the company. You feel like you're part of something bigger, contributing. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to talk through the reasons why people stay, and it's all to do with commitment. There are 3 different types of commitment. So first of all, we have continuance commitment, and that's when you feel like you're afraid to leave. So you're staying because if you leave, you won't have the same salary, you won't have the same status in a new company, you won't have the same commute. There's a reason, but it's the reason that you're staying is actually from fear. Hey, Clara. then affective commitment is the next one. And that's when you feel like you really belong in the workplace and that you align with what they're talking about. And it's an emotional reason to leave. It's not out of fear, it's not out of anything else. And then the third reason is the normative. So normative is if you feel a sense of obligation to stay. So you feel like you're obliged, maybe they paid for your training, maybe they provided some opportunities for you, they might have paid for education, something like that, but you feel a sense of obligation that if you leave, then you're breaking some sort of agreement that you've made with that organization. Affective commitment is the commitment that you're really trying to aim for. So that's that emotional reason to stay. You're staying because you really, really like the organization and you want to stay there. So now I'm going to focus on need satisfaction, which is what I touched on at the start. And I put up this little picture of a car to help you remember. So there's three words you really need to remember, and that's competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And I'll go into each of those in a bit of detail to explain a bit more about what it is. If you think you might be aware of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is not a hierarchy. These are universal needs that every single person has. Every single employee has these needs, and these needs need to be satisfied. But you need to find the balance between too much and too little of each of these needs, and I'll go into a bit more detail about what that means for each of them. So what do you think, if someone doesn't have enough competence, what do you think that might demonstrate, or how do you think they might feel? Stressed, okay, yeah. Or too much competence, what do you think then? Bored, yeah, so they're overqualified. So not enough competence, you might feel a little bit like an imposter. So I talk often about the imposter syndrome. You might feel like someone's going to find me out, they're going to realize that I'm not good enough to do this role, and you might feel a great sense of fear that someone's going to realize that you're not up to the job. You might have this fear of not being good enough. Welcome. Or you're feeling a little bit out of your depth. Okay? And then touching on what Shane said, so if you have too much competence, if you're overqualified for the job, you might get this sense of boredom or complacency. You're feeling a bit stuck and you don't really know where else to go, but you're feeling really bored. So that's competence. Autonomy then. So not enough autonomy. Does anyone have experience of being micromanaged at work? Hands up. I certainly do. So micromanagement is the epitome of not having enough autonomy. It's when you're telling someone exactly what they should do and how they should do it. So that is a total and utter lack of autonomy. However, on the flip side, you can also have too much autonomy. And I see there's some entrepreneurs here, so this is something that entrepreneurs really struggle with. So suddenly you're managing yourself and you don't have anyone else to answer to, but actually you're really lacking in direction unless you sit down and plan and think about what is it that you're trying to achieve. So having too much autonomy can lead to a lack of direction. So in the workplace, it could be that a manager hasn't explained exactly what it is, where you're trying to get to, what it is that you're trying to do, and you're kind of left in this position where you're a bit aimless and you're not really sure which direction you're going in. If anyone wants copies of these slides, by the way, I'm happy to share afterwards. Yeah, no problem at all. Relatedness then is the third. So C-A-R, CAR, easy to remember. Competence, autonomy, relatedness. Relatedness is the last one. So not enough relatedness is that sense that you don't really feel like you belong in the workplace. But you can equally have too much relatedness, where there's cliques and there's exclusion. You're somehow being excluded from whatever is going on. So there's too much relatedness in some areas and you're feeling excluded. The other part with relatedness, and it goes back to what you said, Shane, is relating to the impact that you're having. So how you are contributing and really understanding how what you do on a day-to-day basis relates to the overall company goals. some other needs that people might have. So the three needs that I spoke about, competence, autonomy and relatedness, they're all universal needs and every single person has them. And those needs need to be satisfied, and you can't oversatisfy them or undersatisfy them. You need to find that balance, and that comes through conversations with people. The other thing that conversations can bring about is understanding what people's needs are. Now, if you sat down and asked me, what are your needs? I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. But it's about having those open discussions about, well, what's working for you and what's not working for you. Can anyone tell me here, like, what, if someone said to you, what are your needs? Would you be able to articulate it? No, I'm getting a few shaking of the head. So some other needs that people might have, a need for reward. So not everyone has that need, but some people, that's really, really strong. They want to feel like they're rewarded for the contribution that they make in the business. Another one then is recognition. I know certainly that's a need that I have that I wasn't getting in my last role. Even just private recognition. So some people like private, some people like public recognition. But it's about understanding exactly what it is that an individual requires. Because some people, you know, it's like, oh, tell the whole company how great I am and how well I'm doing. But others, it's more like, let's have a private conversation and I'll just give you some feedback on how you're actually doing. Learning and development, I know this is a big one for me. Learning is one of my core values, and I really, really enjoy learning, just for learning's sake. It's not for any other reason. And if the opportunity to learn and develop and grow doesn't exist in a role, then I'm going to feel really that my needs are not being satisfied in some way. Progression then, so having that visible progression, and that seems to recently be a real mark of success for people. I mean, that's a whole other topic that I could talk about. But some people see that as something that they really, really need in order to, you know, it's like a status thing as well. Self-expression then, so feeling that you are able to express yourself and feeling that you can, that you're being heard within the organisation as well. Higher purpose, so having a higher purpose, going back to, again, Seamus, what you had said earlier about contributing, making a contribution to something that's much bigger than yourself, so whether it's a societal contribution or something like that. Stability then, some people really, really place a high importance on stability and having a regular source of income, having you know, a regular route to work, all of those kind of things that people place a really high importance on. It's not, personally, it's not something that I value, but it could be something that someone else has this need, and making sure that that need is being satisfied. And then a variety, so having, I know for me, I don't mind doing monotonous tasks and things like that. I don't really mind doing that, but some people don't like doing those, and they would much prefer to have a large variety of tasks that they undertake. And then achievement, so I know for me, knowing that I've achieved something and seeing the visible results of that achievement is really, really important. And then status we kind of touched on earlier. Does anyone have any questions based on what I said, or any comments or any thoughts about what's happening in your own workplace or in previous roles?
If I can, have you noticed a change in generations and how important or less important purpose is? Because I get a feeling, like, without any real research, around that the younger generation now, when I was starting to work, I just wanted a job and I didn't really care, where there's a lot more, you know, choice maybe, and they're a lot more specific around, well, I don't want that job because I want this job because of the lines. Is there real research around that, or it's just, I know that's not totally, you know, what people are, I hear a lot of people speaking about.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of
no, that's really interesting you should say that. I have a podcast called Happier at Work. It's coming, the next episode is coming out tomorrow, and we do touch on that. And it's really, really interesting because if you think back in the 1950s, people got, they had a great sense of meaning from being part of the church. And a lot of their meaning, a lot of their spirituality came from that area. But as time has gone on, fewer and fewer people are going to church, or they feel that they don't associate with the church as much as in previous generations. So because of that, the emphasis of meaning has sort of shifted to work because that's where we spend a lot of our time. So people are looking for that sense of meaning in the workplace. Does that?
I don't know, that's right, because it's like a lot of institutions, the church is one, and politics is another. And there's a lot of trust in institutions where people are looking for somewhere else for stability, like mental stability.
Yeah.
And business leaders will make trust.
Yeah.
It's exactly for us.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the also, if you have say 16 people in an organisation and they vary in their choice and what have you, and personal circumstances, I'm looking through those needs, not
Yeah.
needs as you do talk about them, so that we get to it anyway. I know my wife would have different sets of needs, and I know the person sitting beside you in the workplace, because like stability, we always specify GPTs on a Friday evening, really as fine as what is the next job's coming up. When you're 32, you're looking at that down, you see a guy, you're going out for a girl, and you're paying a mortgage, you now need to have a mortgage, you need stability, so I think the needs change. But if you take a workforce and you have from 65 years of age to 45, as far as I know, 10 people, the challenge from a management perspective, retaining staff, is they're all going to have different sets of needs.
Yeah.
How do you create basically those important, I know this is a challenge for HR professionals regarding reward cycles and stuff, that's what it comes under, do you need flexibility to leave the office 20 minutes before kids?
Yeah.
Or do you want progression for your course that you pay for? You also come out with budgets as such, okay? And the challenge there is maybe set precedences and the office early, so now Sally wants to be the office early, so she hasn't got a reason to be the office early, or Johnny hasn't got a reason to be the office early, so rather than the kids, so all these conversations.
Yeah.
So the needs thing is probably a trigger for a lot of the conflict that happens in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose maybe it's a case of having that open discussion with workers, and some people's needs are going to be satisfied in different ways.
Yeah.
So it could be a case that, well, I mean, flexible working, I think, for me, I think it's a really great solution for a lot of things, and trusting that people will get their job done no matter how many hours it takes them to do that. But that's a whole other conversation. I'll come back to you now in a second, Clara. Yeah. Did you want to?
Yeah, actually, I want to join these 2 points together because you have to be aware that the workplace doesn't have to fill every individual need. It's not possible. Out of the list of other needs, what the workplace does need to do is to look at the 3 basic
Yeah.
needs. That
Universal
need to be
needs.
filled,
Yeah.
right?
The universal.
And then back to your point, the issue with the competence, autonomy, and relatedness, are 3
Yeah.
that she brought up. And I think that when you're talking about, the church, that actually goes back to one of the needs of relatedness, which is so
Definitely,
so,
yeah.
belonging
to something.
a GAA club,
Yeah.
or, and nowadays this younger generation is actually looking for the purpose, looking for happiness. Am I in a group in this company right now that makes sense to me
Yeah.
as a career and as a purpose of life? So if you were to focus, I would focus on these 3 points that we brought up.
Yeah, definitely. But I suppose, it's the conversation then of how do you compare across different things? So, like, if someone gets flexible working, but someone else gets better opportunities for progression, are they, it's about having that conversation with the individual. Like, you're not interested in progression, but you are interested in flexible working. Are you satisfied with that? And it's having those.
I think the other thing you make a point there here, Clara, is does the workplace need to? I mean, it's not the business has to make money. That's primary. It has to make money. It's not a club.
Yeah.
So I know this is where a lot of I'm not forget HR for a second. It's certainly going to directors
Yeah.
have this conflict regarding their employees because money is no money. How many miles off on Friday afternoon? Like, it's fine if you want that, but money's no money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then when you have conversations and open conversations, I think if you are able successfully address the us versus them mentality?
No, I
Definitely.
totally agree with you. I'm being devil's advocate here.
No, that's okay.
No,
As am I.
yeah, so not, these are trying to solve as such, but
Yeah.
this is what I'm coming up against.
Yeah, so these are the issues that you're facing in your business. And do you
Well,
have
yeah.
do you have a specific thing like
No,
that?
I'm working in recruitment, but
Okay.
doing other, like obviously I'm meeting with employers all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing their bugbears, and I'm meeting candidates all the time, and I'm hearing their issues to deal with. And your needs thing is quite good, because I've been doing that naturally.
Okay, yeah.
And then using that later on to get out, not the go-to.
Yeah. I mean, that's not an exhaustive list. It's just kind of, I suppose,
The core parts.
thought-provoking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and definitely like what Clara was saying, competence, autonomy, and relatedness. They're three universal needs that everyone has, and they need to be satisfied. You can't over-satisfy them or under-satisfy them. You need to find the balance, and different people will have those needs in different degrees as well. Despite the fact that they're universal, they'll show up in kind of different degrees, I think is probably the best word to use. But I'm going to try something now, and just to kind of summarize what I was talking about. Competence is about providing feedback and demonstrating the impact that someone is having. So making sure to show the impact that people are having and have those discussions around feedback. So constructive feedback as well as positive feedback as well. Autonomy then is about giving someone the direction, but then taking your hands off and letting them get on with it and trusting that they'll know what to do once you provide enough direction for them. And then relatedness is that sense of belonging that people have and the contribution that they're making to the society, or whether it's they're making the contribution to the organisation as well. So yeah, just wanted to try something here, and that is, oh sorry, yeah, I'm happy to share these slides, yeah. Okay, you want to take it straight away? Yeah, no worries. I'm going to try something here, and that's connecting on LinkedIn. I've not tried this before, as in on a big screen, so let's see how it goes. So if you take out your phones and go to LinkedIn and open up My Network. So everyone got that? My Network. And then click on the little person and plus sign, which is down in the bottom right hand corner. Got that. And then scan the QR code. Should pop up then. Got that. And try and scan that. I'll get out of your way.
Yeah,
Does that work?
works.
Fantastic. So anyone who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can use that, and feel free to rob that trick, because I haven't seen anyone else do it before, but I thought that would be a great thing to do.
Just take a picture.
No, you open your door and you just scan it.
Yeah. It's really handy, isn't it? Yeah, brilliant. If that didn't work, then the good old-fashioned way then is, my name is Aoife O'Ryan on LinkedIn, so if you want to connect that way instead. And if you want to connect with me, empowermentcoaching.ie is my website. As I mentioned, I have a podcast called Happy at Work. It comes out every Friday. I'm in the middle of a leadership series at the moment, so last week we spoke about the lessons from sport and how to apply them in the corporate world. I spoke with Bernard Jackman. Tomorrow's episode is talking about meaning and purpose at work. So that's something I think that we can all relate to, so that should be really, really interesting as well. You'll find it on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want a copy of the slides, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to share. And the links for Spotify, Apple, and my website where you'll find the podcast is in that as well. Thank you.